Gematria is an Assyro-Babylonian system of numerology later adopted by Jews that assigns numerical value to a word or phrase in the belief that words or phrases with identical numerical values bear some relation to each other or bear some relation to the number itself, as it may apply to a person's age, the calendar year, or the like. The best-known example of Gematria is the Hebrew word Chai, which is composed of two letters that add up to 18. This has made 18 a lucky number among Jews, and gifts in multiples of 18 are very popular. Etymology: although the term is Hebrew, it most likely derives from Greek Gematria, geometry, which was used as a translation of Gamor to the first Ria, though some scholars believe it to derive from Greek grammatua, rather. It's possible that both words had an influence on the formation of the Hebrew word. The word has been extant in English since the 17th century from translations of works by Giovanni Pico della Mirandola. Although ostensibly derived from Greek, it is largely used in Jewish texts, notably in those associated with the Kabbalah. History: some identify two forms of Gematria, the revealed form, which is prevalent in many hermeneutic methods found throughout rabbinic literature, and the mystical form, a largely Kabbalistic practice. Though Gematria is most often used to calculate the values of individual words, psukim are musical aphorisms, sentences from the standard Jewish prayers, personal, angelic and godly names, and other religiously significant material. Kabbalists use them often for arbitrary phrases and, occasionally, for various languages. A few instances of Gematria in Arabic, Spanish and Greek, spelled with the Hebrew letters, are mentioned in the works of Rabbi Abraham Abulafia. Some Hasidic rabbis also used it, though rarely, for Yiddish. However, the primary language for Gematria calculations has always been and remains Hebrew and, to a lesser degree, Aramaic. A classic biblical commentary incorporating Gematria is Baal HaChirim by Rabbi Jacob ben Asher. Gematria is often used by the Maharal of Prague and Hasidic Torah commentators. Textual sources: a Mishnaic textual source makes clear that the use of Gematria is dated to at least the Tannaic period. Per Kaft 323, K unregistered trademark AY, section, gigahertz unregistered trademark Y, unregistered trademark YY unregistered trademark A. Gigahertz K unregistered trademark KKA. Rabbi Elazar Chizma said, "The laws of mixed bird offerings and the key to the calculations of menstruation days are these are the body of the halakha. The calculation of the equinoxes and Gematria are the desserts of wisdom." An alternative translation to the Hebrew word KK is minor side dishes. Minor dishes may be served before, during, or after a meal, to add interest and variety. They are the appetizers, side dishes, desserts, tidbits are never to be served as main dishes. In other words, these sciences, while important, are yet only auxiliary and secondary. What is primary is the Torah. What is central is the life-giving law. Values table: the Mispar gadol values are vowels. The value of the Hebrew vowels is not usually counted, but some lesser-known methods include the vowels as well. The most common vowel values are as follows. Sometimes the names of the vowels are spelled out and their Gematria is calculated using standard methods. Methods: there are several methods used to calculate the numerical value for the individual words, phrases or whole sentences. More advanced methods are usually used for the most significant biblical verses, prayers, names of God and angels, etc. Mispar Krachi that uses full numerical value of the 22 letters. Sometimes it is also called Mispar HaPanim, as opposed to the more complicated Mispar HaOrki. Mispar gadol counts the final forms of the Hebrew letters as a continuation of the numerical sequence for the alphabet, with the final letters assigned values from 500 to 900. The same name, Mispar HaGadol, is also used for another method, which spells the name of each letter and adds the standard values of the resulting string. Mispar Katan calculates the value of each letter, but truncates all of the zeros. It is also sometimes called Mispar Me'agel. Mispar Siduri with each of the 22 letters given a value from 1 to 22. Mispar Bonai is calculated by walking over each letter from the beginning to the end, adding the value of all previous letters and the value of the current letter to the running total. Therefore, the value of the word akkad is 1 a plus a, 1 a plus a8, a plus a, 1 a plus a8 a plus a4, a equals a23. Mispar uses each letter as the sum of all the standard Gematria letter values preceding it. Therefore, the value of Aleph is 1, the value of Bet is 1 a plus a2 equals a3, the value of Gimel is 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6, etc. It's also known as Mispar Mishulash. Mispar Prati calculates the value of each letter as the square of its standard Gematria value. Therefore, the value of Aleph is 1AA, A1 equals A1, the value of Bet is 2AA, A2 equals A4, the value of Gimel is 3AA, A3 equals A9, etc. It's also known as Mispar Ha Prati. Mispar Ha Klali is the square of the standard absolute value of each word. Mispar Mishulash calculates the value of each letter as the cube of their standard value. The same term is more often used for Mispar Kidmi. Mispar Ha the value of each letter as its standard value multiplied by the position of the letter in a word or a phrase in either ascending or descending order. This method is particularly interesting, because the result is sensitive to the order of letters. It is also sometimes called Mispar Mishulash. Mispar Mispari spells out the standard values of each letter by their Hebrew names as 1 plus 8 plus 4 equals 13 etc., and then adds up the standard values of the resulting string. Mispar Shemi uses the value of each letter as equal to the value of its name. For example, the value of the letter Aleph Isa equals A111, Bet Isa equals A412, etc. Sometimes the same operation is applied 2 or more times recursively. Mispar Ne'elam spells out the name of each letter without the letter itself and adds up the value of the resulting string. Mispar Katan Mispari is used where the total numerical value of a word is reduced to a single digit. If the sum of the value exceeds 9, the integer values of the total are repeatedly added to produce a single-digit number. The same value will be arrived at regardless of whether it is the absolute values, the ordinal values, or the reduced values that are being counted by methods above. Mispar Misafi adds the number of the letters in the word or phrase to their Gematria. Kolal is the number of words, which is often added to the Gematria. In case of one word, the standard value is incremented by 1. Within the wider topic of Gematria are included the various alphabet transformations where one letter is substituted by another based on a logical scheme. Atbash exchanges each letter in a word or a phrase by opposite letters. Opposite letters are determined by substituting the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet with the last letter, the second letter with the next to last, etc. The result can be interpreted as a secret message or calculated by the standard Gematria methods. A few instances of Atbash are found already in the Hebrew Bible. For example, see Jeremiah 25:26, and 51:41, with Targum and Rashi. The alphabet is divided in half, 11 letters in each section. The first letter of the first series is exchanged for the first letter of the second series, the second letter of the first series for the second letter of the second series and so forth. HB divides the alphabet into 2 equal groups of 11 letters. Within each group, the first letter is replaced by the last, the second by the 10th, etc. Ayakbaka replaces each letter by another one that has a 10 times greater value. The final letters usually signify the numbers from 500 to 900. Thousands is reduced to ones, often and replaces each letter by the last letter of its name. Orkhusbeka divides the alphabet into 3 groups of 7, 7 and 8 letters. Each letter is replaced cyclically by the corresponding letter of the next group. The letter Tav remains the same. Avad replaces each letter by the next one. Tav becomes Aleph. The opposite operation is also used. Most of the above-mentioned methods and ciphers are listed by Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. Some authors provide lists of as many as 231 various replacement ciphers, related to the 231 mystical gates of the Sefer Yetzirah. Dozens of other far more advanced methods are used in Kabbalistic literature, without any particular names. In Ms. Oxford 1822, one article lists 75 different forms of Gematria. Some known methods are recursive in nature and are reminiscent of the graph theory or use heavily combinatorics. Rabbi Eliezer Roach often used multiplication, instead of addition, for the above-mentioned methods. For example, spelling out the letters of a word and then multiplying the squares of each letter value in the resulting string produces very large numbers, in orders of trillions. The spelling process can be applied recursively, until a certain pattern is found. The gematria of the resulting string is then calculated. The same author also used sums of all possible unique letter combinations, which add up to the value of a given letter. For example, the letter E, which has the standard value of 5, can be produced by combining 1 plus A1 plus A1 plus A1 plus A1, 2 plus A1 plus A1 plus A1, 3 plus A1 plus A1, 4 plus A1, 2 plus A2 plus A1 or 2 plus A3, which adds up to 30. Sometimes combinations of repeating letters are not allowed. The original letter itself can also be viewed as a valid combination. Variant spellings of some letters can be used to produce sets of different numbers, which can be added up or analyzed separately. Many various complex formal systems and recursive algorithms, based on graph-like structural analysis of the letter names and their relations to each other, modular arithmetic, pattern search and other highly advanced techniques, are found in the Sefer HaMalkuth by Rabbi David Ha-Levi of Dra Valley, a Spanish-Moroccan Kabbalist of the 15th–16th century. Rabbi David Ha-Levi's methods take into consideration the numerical values and other properties of the vowels as well. Kabbalistic astrology uses some specific methods to determine the astrological influences on a particular person. According to one method, the gematria of the person's name is added to the gematria of his or her mother's name. The result is then divided by 7 and 12. The remainders signify a particular planet and zodiac sign. Absolute value, the most common form of gematria is used in the Talmud and Midrash, and elaborately by many post-Talmudic commentators. It involves reading words and sentences as numbers, assigning numerical instead of phonetic value to each letter of the Hebrew alphabet. When read as numbers, they can be compared and contrasted with other words or phrases. Cf. the Hebrew proverb equal or less than unregistered trademark U unregistered trademark A section. The gematric value of unregistered trademark Y is 70 and this is also the gematric value of section A euro. Use in other languages. The first attested use of gematria occurs in an inscription of Assyrian ruler Sargon II stating that the king built the wall of Khosab at 16,283 cubits long to correspond with the numerical value of his name. Gematria or isopsephy was borrowed into the Greek probably soon after their adoption of the Semitic writing system. The extant examples of use in Greek come primarily from the Christian literature and, unlike rabbinic sources, is always explicitly stated as being used. It has been asserted that Plato offers a discussion of gematria in its simplest forms in the Cratylus, where he is said to have claimed that the essential force of a thing's name is to be found in its numerical value, and that words and phrases of the same numerical value may be substituted in context without loss in meaning. A direct review of the Cratylus, however, shows that Plato made no such claim and that gematria is not discussed in it either explicitly or implicitly. What can be more accurately stated is that Plato's discussion in the Cratylus involves a view of words and names as referring to the essential nature of a person or object, and that this view may have influenced Euro, and is central to a Euro-Greek gematria. The Latin script languages exhibit borrowing of gematria methods dating from the early Middle Ages after the use lapsed following the collapse of the Roman Empire in the 5th century. Many researchers connect the number of the beast, referred to in the Book of Revelation of the New Testament, with either Greek or Hebrew gematria as used by the early Christians. According to such interpretations, the number in question, 666, was originally derived via gematria from the name of the Roman emperor of the time, Nero Caesar. Arabic, calculation tools, Android app, Gematria calculator, Chrome browser extension, Gematria assistant, see also. References. Bibliography, Gesenius Hebrew Grammar, AA Section 5b and A Section 5n, Klein, Ernest, Dr., a comprehensive etymological dictionary of the English language, dealing with the origin of words and their sense development, thus illustrating the history and civilization of culture. Elsevier, Oxford, 7th ed., 2000, Davis, William David and Allison, Dale C., A Critical and Exegetical Commentary on the Gospel According to St. Matthew, Continuum International Publishing Group, 2004. Akers, Kevin, Data Integrity Patterns of the Torah, A Tale of Prime, Perfect and Transcendental Numbers, Research Systems, Melbourne, 2004, 1, Clausen, Calvin. C. Mathematical Mysteries, The Beauty and Magic of Numbers, Perseus Books, 1999, Ratson, Lee, Understanding Information Systems, What They Do and Why We Need Them, ALA Editions, 2004, Genesis Rabbi 95-3. Land of Israel, 5th century. Reprinted in, for example, Midrash Rabbah, Genesis. Translated by H. Friedman and Morris Simon. Volume 2, London, The Sunsino Press, 1983. ISBN 0-900689-38-2. Deuteronomy Rabbah 125. Land of Israel, 5th century. Reprinted in, for example, Midrash Rabbah, Leviticus. Translated by H. Friedman and Morris Simon. Volume 7, London, The Sunsino Press, 1983. ISBN 0-900689-38-2. DVD Unlocking Da Vinci's Code, a Euro Mystery or Conspiracy. Highland Entertainment, 2004. UPC 634,991,203,821, Lawrence, Shirley Blackwell, The Secret Science of Numerology, a Euro The Hidden Meaning of Numbers and Letters, New Page Books, 2001, Hughes, J.P., Suggestive Gematria, Holmes, 2008, Further Reading, Davis, John J. Biblical Numerology. Grand Rapids, Michigan, Baker Books, 1968. Lawrence, Shirley Blackwell. The Secret Science of Numerology, a Euro The Hidden Meaning of Numbers and Letters. Franklin Lakes, New Jersey, New Page Books, 2001. Menninger, Carl. Number Words and Number Symbols, A Cultural History of Numbers. Cambridge, MIT Press, 1969. Rawn, Jonathan D. Discovering Gematria, Foundational Exegesis and Primary Dictionary 1968 pp. Gematria Publishing, 2008. Zayatler, William. Musical Gematria. Musica Arcana, 2013. ISBN 978-1-940630-02-1, external links, WebGema, a Euro an interactive Gematria calculator, which includes results from Torah verses. Simple English Gematria Calculator, Peter's Gematria Satia, a Euro examines the application of Gematria to the European languages from the medieval period onwards, particularly in respect to esoteric communities, such as the Freemasons. Letters of several alphabets and their numerical amounts, Gematria Calculator, finds match to biblical verses, Gemma to the first Riel, Gemma to the first Ria Calculator, which performs multiplex number processing. Contains the Leningrad Codex. The Gematria database at Esoteric Delights is a large online Gematria database of the Hebrew Euro-English dictionary, along with tools for transliteration and translation, geared towards English-speaking esoteric communities.